Hello, everybody. I'm Nathan Ginnever, and I'm going to be speaking about universities on the blockchain. The title here is BLOCK EDU, Decentralized Autonomous Universities, so everybody's probably familiar with decentralized autonomous organizations. So you could consider this as a subset of decentralized autonomous organizations, which may or may not have a bad name, considering a few hacks that may or may not have happened last year. So let's talk about blockchains for a moment. What are blockchains? What do they do? They coordinate computers, right? They make a bunch of nodes come to agreement on some set of data. But can they do more, right? Can blockchains coordinate people? Can blockchains coordinate value systems, so to speak? Can they get a bunch of people to come together and say, yes, we value something? I often will pitch this to people and say, they'll ask, why are you building a decentralized university? What's your reasoning? What's the value here? And I usually don't have to respond because of online universities and their growth and the cost of attending private universities. So there is a real problem there, and how to solve that problem is a complex issue. I don't think that any one person can figure that out. So let's try to get a community of people to figure out what is wrong with blockchains, or what's wrong with universities, and can coordinating people on a blockchain solve that issue. So a blockchain for education can provide a platform for universities and communities to determine what values they share. Not every university is going to share the same values, so they can decide to collect and to come together and determine their own values. Cryptography can provide a means of proving your identity in a distributed space. It's a way to say, you don't know me, but I can prove who I am. So that gives a lot of power to actors that aren't coordinated by a central governance. And flexible governance. With the addition of new community members, you're able to define what happens to your university as time goes on. So new forks, new chains in this university will allow different ideas to come to life. If somebody doesn't agree with something, they can always fork the chain. So how is this actually built? Well, what I'm building is a system of Ethereum contracts. These are similar to what Backfeed came out with about a year ago, and they have since evolved into a company called DAOstack. And if you haven't heard of DAOstack, you should look into that. They're building decentralized autonomous organizations, less general than my specific blockchain universities. So what you have is an ecosystem of organizations, and universities can value each other. You can stake value in each other. You can say, I would like to buy 10% of University X, and that means University Y then has a certain stake in that university. So you get this ability to have students transferring between universities and having what they've learned in one university publicly valued from another university. And this is a virtual chain that I'm speaking about. There's a few people that are trying to build virtual chains, and I think there's a lot of implementation details that haven't gone into what a virtual chain on top of Ethereum looks like. So as an engineer, this is kind of an interesting thing to look at. Cryptocurrencies and consensus protocols. So just a quick overview, we all know that there's proof of work and proof of stake. Both of those are economically aligned. They find a way to use economic incentives to align people to agree on a certain consensus. The protocol that I will be using is the one that DAOstack and Backfeed are using, and they're calling it proof of value. And this is similar to proof of stake in the sense that it is still incentivized by economic means. But there is a bit of a difference in the fact that you have a reputation that can't be traded. So this reputation decides what the next agreement on consensus is going to be. It's not a stake in the finances of the company. Reputation based in token distribution. So we can build these communities by issuing 2 tokens. So if you were to be rewarded, you're not just rewarded with financial incentives, but you're also rewarded with this non-transferable reputation token. So only the economic token is the one that is used to enter courses and to reward people. The decision-making, the consensus, is maintained by the reputation token. What gives tokens value? This is probably something that every company here is interested in, and I won't go into too much detail about it, but an organization must use the tokens. Tokens it's some sort of service, right? These tokens must be used to maintain the service of the organization. At first, an organization's value will be speculative, as they haven't really developed their service. And in this case, this protocol allows universities to be spun up at will. So anybody may spin up their own token, their own university. So that university may not be valued at first. Some people may speculate if Harvard creates a token on this protocol, Harvard may be valued more than a person that is creating a previously known about token. But as the protocol develops, you'll start to gain value from that token. You'll start to see a real use case coming out. So this has legal questions, as everybody here is probably looking into. Does this provide you equity in the company? Is this a security? I don't have the answers to that. It may very well be. So as I was saying, anybody can spin up a university on this protocol. The idea here is I have a certain subject that I would like to learn, and perhaps the major universities aren't teaching this subject. A prime example of that may be, how do you program contracts on a distributed system like a blockchain? So I think a lot of the companies here are looking for Solidity developers. I would like to see a place where people could go and learn about Solidity, or learn about Ethereum, or learn about blockchain transactions. I don't see that being taught at normal universities at this moment. So to be able to freely and quickly spin that up, I believe, is a pretty powerful thing. And so it runs on top of the Ethereum blockchain, as I was saying. The miners of the education chain should be skilled. So there is this top-level blockchain. It's sort of similar to the plasma chains that Vitalik was talking about recently, where you have top-level chains where you can commit the transactions from child chains into the top-level chains and have different sort of verifiability from the top down, so to speak. There's a root-level blockchain, so the miners of the root level can settle consensus issues as they move down to the lower child chains. What might a transaction look like? So in the BLOCK EDU sense, a transaction is going to have the form of a student trying to confirm that a teacher gave some sort of information to them. So a student will take a test. A student may input some homework assignment that the teacher issued to them, and these will have a hash that will be locked into the blockchain. And then as miners are trying to figure out whether or not to include these transactions into the next block, they will have to physically look at these hashes. They're going to have a much more hands-on human approach. They will need to look at whether or not this student was actually learning something. If they agree that the student had learned something, then they would include a transaction similar to this into their block. And once they do that, you're going to be issuing reputation, and you'll also be issuing tokens to that teacher for doing the service. And then a block is similar to a normal block in Bitcoin, where you're collecting those transactions, and miners are agreeing upon whether or not those transactions are giving information to students. EDU mining is the miners are going to be selected by random, and this is going to be based upon their weight of reputation. So higher reputation is going to have a higher chance of being able to create a new block, and reputation is obviously earned as you create new blocks. So as you have more of a wealth of knowledge in your child chain, so maybe my child chain is specific in mathematics, and I have a high understanding of mathematics, I'm going to be looking at students in mathematics courses and confirming that, yes, they have learned Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, and they are moving forward in that sequence. Therefore, as I confirm that transaction and as other people confirm that transaction with me, it enforces the fact that I understand what this course was trying to teach, and that I am knowledgeable enough to say, yes, this teacher is doing the right thing. And so the first one of these that I'm trying to build is going to be, as I was stating, specific towards distributed systems. So I am going to create a university just out of thin air. I don't have the resources. I can't create some building. I can't put up a nice campus for everybody to walk around in. But what I do have are friends that are developing something called JaniceWeb. And JaniceWeb is a virtual reality platform that is fitted to the web. So I'm going to create a university that belongs inside of a virtual reality classroom. And in order to attend these classes, you're actually going to need to be enrolled in the smart contract that'll give you access to this virtual world, this classroom that you can come and view my courses. The prerequisites are verifiable by the smart contracts that are running them, and the class sizes may be limited, and the tokens will be unlocked after the lecture, and people have agreed that I have done a good job. And that's BLOCK EDU. Thanks, guys.